Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Chasing Edges podcast. I'm your host, Brian Peters. Very fun conversation today with CEO and founder of Strong Coffee, Adam von Rothfelder. He brings a lot of wisdom to the entrepreneurial spirit here. He's already lived an incredible life, transitioning from collegiate athlete to professional fighter onto personal trainer, model, celebrity trainer, TV personality on NBC's Strong, and then now back into the entrepreneurial world with Strong Coffee, where he failed in 2013 but has succeeded so far in 2018. He brings so much juice and wisdom in the world of understanding the value of time and where you spend it, how you spend it, and how to track it. There's a lot of great insight there. We approach the word violent again in this episode, where we approach our verbiage and the actions that we take behind it, how we define our actions with violence and aggression. Very fun conversation. And then we go down a bunch of different rabbit holes in the world of taking things from 0 to 1, which is the definition of an entrepreneur, creator, artist. And there is a lot of nuggets in here, but also a lot of comedy. So I hope you enjoy. Yeah, just an absolute electric factory, hey?
Dude, right now big things are happening with Strong Coffee, and I've never had so many Zoom calls in my life, just kind of figuring some stuff out. But yeah, we're got like a partial acquisition happening right now, and which is going to be amazing for us. And 4.5 years, and I'm finally going to have like the big everything you need.
Yeah, that's juicy as fuck.
Fuck yeah. Baby.
Well, I'm hyped for you just because I don't know if I'll keep this on the pod or not, but like for those of you listening, Adam sent me some of their products and it's absolutely electric. It's really good. The ingredients are dialed and it's just like an easy grab and go coffee, which usually isn't my case. I try and do like the drips and all that exotic stuff, but like that, I've only tried the latte so far, but dialed, man. That but I expect nothing less from a high performer like yourself.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Strong Coffee it's been a labor of love, like truly. It has come from a long background and kind of the transitions and history of the product, and it's cool to see somebody like you enjoying it, and us being able to get on a podcast and kind of break it all down, what it's all meant to be strong kind of thing.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we'll get into philosophy, but how'd you get into the space?
Dude. So I mean, interestingly enough, I started drinking coffee pretty young, and I had this thing. I was prescribed Adderall. I didn't want to take Adderall. I took it for years. When I've kind of discovered weightlifting, I realized that I never had an appetite when I was taking Adderall. So I started drinking coffee during my paper route, not like regular coffee. I wasn't that badass at 13 years old. I was drinking like a cappuccino.
Yeah.
And I get like the sugar-free one, like at the gas station.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like caffeine helps. And then I read some article about, putting L-theanine and caffeine together. And I'm doing that at like 14 years old and taking these like little L-theanine capsules and putting it in my coffee. And then, as time progressed, as I get older, I was making this now like drip coffee, expensive coffee, because like I'm like all into like nice coffee, and I got like this like super like high-end blender, and I'm putting like 25 fucking things in my coffee, and everybody is like, yo, make me one of them coffees. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, because I got nothing but time. I got no kids, right? I'm a trainer, so I only work like 4 or 5 hours a day. Like everybody quit lying,
Yeah.
like all you fucking trainers out there, it's like 4 or 5 hours a day. Like the rest of the time, you're just jerking around at the gym and sitting on Instagram, and you're talking about, I've worked 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
So I had time, and I'm like, yeah, I'll make you one of these coffees. And then when it really hit me though, that none of these people would make themselves this coffee. It was like too involved. And it really hit me when my dad certainly wouldn't try. And at the time he was, battling leukemia, and he wouldn't like take these ingredients and put it into a coffee. It was just too complicated, too many steps. Right.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, the idea kind of kept evolving. I'm now a parent, I'm doing all these things. And in 2018, I decided to bring back an idea that, jump back in like 2013, I actually initially tried launching Strong Coffee and failed miserably. And I launched the company, had barely any money to do it, had this great idea, but then my first kid is born, my dad dies. It's just kind of like bing, bang, boom. And I just like put it to rest. And in 2018, I'm working as a trainer. I'm at this person's house, this celebrity, this athlete, like cruising up and down the coast. And I mean, I'm flown out by Peter Thiel to be his trainer, like all these, like, I'm like, I am pressed against the glass ceiling, right? Like I feel it. Like, I'm like, oh, like, this is like what I always wanted, but like, damn, I didn't like, if I don't like the way it feels.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not at home. I'm with a lot of, to be, like, I love some of my clients. And then there's some that I was just like, God, this person sucks, but shit, they have $200 some an hour to pay me. And, they do have a problem that I want to help them, but like them as a person, like, I really wish I didn't have to do this for $200 an hour, like, and ultimately I kind of had this intersecting moment where the Fit Expo asked me to MC their events, and they're like, hey, we'll trade you a booth and we'll give you cash, to like come in and MC our events at the LA Fit Expo. And then the one in like San Jose and the one in Florida, and they were like flying me around. So I used it as an opportunity to try to bring back my idea of Strong Coffee and kind of get away from this like glass ceiling that I felt like that I was sitting on, against as a trainer. And, I had like at the client, like everything that you would want as like a top trainer, but what I wasn't able to see is like my family, like my own physical health was, a struggle because I was putting so much into everybody else's physical health and like the amount of driving I was doing from client to client. And so Strong Coffee, people took their first sips in 2018 at the expo. I was literally just walking around and handing influencers like cups of coffee. I'd be like, hey man, you want a coffee? And they'd be like, yeah. I'd be like, shake it up. I'd be like, damn, this is good. And I'm like, yeah, and this is what's in it. And a lot of people started getting interested, and it was cool. And I got feedback, and I came back and redid the formula and brought it back and redid the formula and just kept on doing it. And then like 6 months later, I launched the company. And I did it with one of my clients, one of my cool clients, was my angel investor. And it all happened because he ran out of coffee that day. And he was like, oh, I wish I had coffee to offer you. And I was like, well, I have coffee to offer you. And I wasn't trying to sell him. It was just like, oh, I was trying to like solve a problem for him.
Yeah.
Right. And like, that's effectively what Strong Coffee is. It was like, I was trying to solve a problem for myself. Right. Like, take this really complicated process and make it super simple. Right. Effectively creating almost a passive health decision. Right. That where it's like, if you're just doing a healthier thing, and it's like, it's, 30 seconds, like it's like no time at all. And that same, like wanting just to like help him, he was like, what is this? And I explained it to him. He's like, well, this is like fucking magical coffee and shit, and this and that. He's like, what do you call it? I'm like, Strong Coffee. And he's like, get the fuck out of here. He's like, there's no way this name's not taken already. And I was like, it is taken by me, Strong Coffee Company. And I explained to him, I'm like, in 2013, I actually created the first coffee. I created the very first non-dairy collagen-based coffee creamer, right? It wasn't like Vital Proteins or anybody. They had collagen. I came out with a non-dairy collagen-based, and we were getting our collagen from the same manufacturer. We would drive to Great Lakes Collagen. He lived in Great Lakes. Kurt is his name. really nice guy. But it's kind of interesting to like think like in 2013, you know, Vital Proteins killed it. I mean, they're like $1 billion company, you know, and Strong Coffee will be too. So
hell yeah. Dude, there's so much juice and like so much there's so many different aspects of your story that are already just like sparking lights throughout my head, because like obviously like just the opportunity to one go from, we'll call it like an hourly worker to like an equity owner. Like I'm a big believer in like the generation of wealth being in equity, and I also think everybody should always take chances on themselves as entrepreneurs, which obviously the personal training industry is, but you do have a ceiling there because like you only have so much time and you're the asset and it bottlenecks there. And then now like you again generated this one, like I think some of the best, we'll call them inventors, all those things, they're just like best entrepreneurs in general are scratching their own itch. And like that, you did that at 13 years old, which is intuitive and awesome anyways, like just kind of wise beyond your years. Just to even find theanine that early is bananas to me because of how ignorant and immature I was at 14 years old. So I think
I was a weird 13-year-old.
Hey, outliers, man. Like the weird ones end up being the wealthy ones. It's the people outside the box, and I think that's really cool. As far as like your philosophy, I'd love to hear that too, because you kind of jumped out with that with Strong Coffee.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, you know, I mean, I think like I mean, for me, you know, being strong obviously always meant to me like being able to like pick something up, right? Or like being able to like take something on. And effectively, like as like life, you know, teaches you a lot, you realize that it's not like your physical strength, it's like your spiritual, your emotional, it's like it's all like integrated as one. And effectively it's like resilience, right? And strong stands for striving to reach our natural greatness. Right. And it's this very just like beautiful way of rethinking what it means to be strong, where it's like effectively we all want to be great, right? But like I know that it's going to take time and energy to get there, as someone who is also trying to get there. And I've always viewed that helping others was going to be the fastest way to my own greatness. Right. So it's like, as a trainer, I would say that all the time to my trainers that I would hire and I bring on, I'd be like, remember, if you want to be great, help them be great, right? Like do that. Like, don't worry about what you look like in the mirror when you're walking past the fucking mirror. Worry about what they look like. Right. And that was something that I always would break down to them. And it was important to me because it was also to remind myself, because I, you know, work so hard at being the greatest, at being a fighter, and kind of like not really thinking about anybody but myself for a long time. And it was, you know, after, you know, some really tragic things in my life, you know, losing my brother to an overdose and, you know, just a lot of, you know, childhood trauma. My dad had a heavy hand, you know, but I was able to like switch, like something switched in my head one day when I, you know, realized that my dad was dying, that like life is, you know, more about like who you help than helping yourself. And being a trainer can be like really, you know,
influential in that category for sure.
The epitome of that, like in a certain way. I mean, there are people who love serving food because it makes them feel a certain way. Like people who are not like, you know, they're waiters in the sense that they love being a waiter. Like there is nothing else that they want to be, you know, a server. Right. And that was like, for me, you know, training. But then, man, when I was on TV and I see like me in front of like 6 million people watching me, and like, I'm getting all these people and they're being influenced by me. I'm like, bigger. Like it's so much bigger than this group fitness class, like these 30 or these 300 people, that 400 people that are in my flock, right? It's more than like this sole person that I'm training for $200 an hour. And it was just bigger. And it was like, I could help millions of people start their day strong. right? Like,
Yeah.
and give them time back and give them energy back. And it would be like this, and that was like why it all happened,
Yeah, dude, that's dynamite. I think that's so cool because I'm a believer in general that like obviously you're in a we'll call it paid position to like be like help them get to their greatness and that kind of thing, but like it doesn't mitigate the fact that your head and your heart are in it too. And I'm always a believer that like help and support are not yours to keep in that realm too, where like everybody's been helped in some way, shape, or form in their life. And so I think like these platforms kind of get skewed at times where people can reach and influence a massive amount of humans, and that is a massive responsibility too, where it's like you should be well researched, you should have good intentions, you should lead with your heart, obviously in your head, but like I think your stance on it is like nails because you can truly change lives with influence.
Dude, 100%. I mean, there is a lot of irresponsible influence being thrown out there all around. I mean, right. And I'll tell you, one of the hardest things about launching Strong Coffee, I mean, I probably sat on it for a couple of weeks longer than I was supposed to, like launching the company and the product out of sheer kind of like fear, right?
Yeah.
Fear, right? It was like, did I do all my homework right? Because I did not want to be that person. I did not want to be the irresponsible influencer, the person who still continues to put whatever in their protein to make it taste a certain way, or whatever in this product, or what, it's like, or fringe products, or unethical dosing, or I didn't want it to not taste good or not mix well. Like I wanted it to be fucking perfect, right? Like, because everything I did was about, being like, as a trainer was like, I do everything right. Like I well researched. I trained bodybuilding to powerlifting to being in Thailand with Ido Portal to, like whatever it was, I was master of none kind of thing. Right. And I ultimately would dive so deep into stuff that it was essential that the people that I respected so much would respect this product and like my efforts. And they did.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah.
It was really wild because like previously in my life as a gym owner, like a lot of people don't realize this, but like a lot of times in business, the first person that you think is going to be your customer is the last, right? Like, right. And, when I opened up a gym, like I thought my friends would like come to my gym and they didn't,
Yeah.
right. And I'm not that, but like
when
I made this product, it took some people a long time. Like I had a friend that admitted to me that he didn't try it for the first 2 years the company was out. He was like, dude, I just love coffee my way. And I just like, I didn't want to ever try it. And then like you asked me and then like, and he's like, and then I tried it and I was blown away. And yeah, man, I'm like, I told you to fucking try it. I told you it's good, but sometimes you just got to help people remove themselves from their own way. So
yeah, I find that like, cause I coach mental skills and that kind of thing to athletes as well. And 9 times out of 10, the head's in the way, and it's or it's just like they fear uncertainty so much, and it's just like, or they can't lose their routine. God forbid I try something new, or I look like a fool, or all the adages there, where it's just like get over it. And like I'm always just a massive fan of people that hype up other people. Like even if it's in the coffee industry, or the creamer industry or whatever, like whatever avenue you're in, like respecting good products is what it is. It doesn't have to be excessively competitive all the time. I don't know if you view it the same way, but like just even like your guy in your gym, like I'll show up once and hype up my people. If it's not for me, it's not for me. I think that's always just the mindset where it's just like at some point, like hyping up your people has faded away, and me and a couple of my buddies are always trying to bring it back. So it's only positivity, and I feel like you hit that vibe.
Yeah, man. I mean, I definitely try to. I want to be supportive. I mean, don't like, I'm usually like the realist who sometimes feels like like a little bit of like the party pooper in some manner. But then once it happens, I'm like, yes, you know, like, and I want it to happen. Case in point, a friend of mine, very talented artist, and he'll be like, oh, I'm going to sell this painting for $5,000 or $10,000. I'm like, dude, be realistic. And he's like, and he gets like, you know, and it's like, to him, it's like a $10,000. I'm like, but like, understand, like, art is like a growth. Like, you have to like, first, you know, somebody's got to buy it for like $500, $300, you know, and then like, you know, it's like, you don't just like walk in, you're like, I'm a master tiler, give me $1 million to do your kitchen. It's like, no, like that takes time, years of building this. And, but like the constant pushing him to do a gallery and to constantly be on him about making this happen. He finally had his gallery and he like sold out, and he like called me and was like, yo, bro, like, I want to thank you so much for staying on me and just like constantly talking shit and like letting me know. He's like, and no, I did not sell a single painting for $10,000. He's like, yeah. He's like, some people laughed at me when I told him that. He's like, but I'm just gonna keep saying it. I was like, hey man, do you? But like, you know, I'm glad that you finally got out there and you sold paintings for $50, $100, $500. You know, it's like, I think he made like $5,000 his first gallery night.
Yeah, that's right. And like, there's something really cool in there in your story and his story where like, I call this like the arena raiser in that realm, where it's like, when you have like two choices, same as you had a choice to like keep holding on to your product or put it out there, like you're putting it out there into the arena, into the light, and into criticism, same as an artist does. And like, that's where like always choose that. And like, you touched on it real quick, where like with athletes, I wrestle a lot with the word perfect, because I don't think it exists in professional sports or collegiate sports. And I really don't think it exists in life, but like, that's where I think like, once you put it out there and you get more eyeballs on your product, you're going to get feedback, you're going to get criticism. And then I have a buddy that actually puts out like borderline wrong information, because he knows people are going to correct him. So he'll find the right answer from somebody else. So, and I think that's dynamite, but I think that's, I think the arena concept of what you guys did and what you pushed him to do, like, that's hype too. Like don't get it twisted. Chirping your buddies and like chirping them to grow and chirping them to like take risks, that's healthy hype. That's like,
yeah. That's all I know is kind of like that tough love hype. Like, well, then fucking prove me, then do it.
Yeah.
Like, do that shit. Like, stop talking shit and just do that. You know, it's like, I'm quick to say, prove it, or then do that. Like, and it's for me telling you, I want you to do it so you can say, I did it. You know, like, that's what I want you to do. I have that sports, you know, I grew up playing soccer and martial arts and baseball, you know, like that was kind of my you know, three things for most of my life, and gymnastics earlier on. But you know, there was definitely a lot of camaraderie. And when I got into MMA, that was like, you know, I mean,
that's a whole different type of chirping. Like, it's almost, it's like a physical chirp. Because like I think a requirement to be a great player is the ability to chirp and get chirped. Because it's really hard to get chirped when the whole squad's teaming up on you. I think it's super fun, but like, I think that's like a necessary like piece of armor to have as like a high performer.
100%. Yeah. If you can't take somebody talking shit without, you know, getting into your feelings like that.
Yeah.
You know, and you can get mad. That's okay. But like, you can't get like mad. You can be like, oh, shut the fuck. You know, you're like, whatever, I'm going to do that shit then. I'm going to, you know, it's like, come back with the same confidence that you just had when you were saying you were going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, that's, I think kind of the thing for me. And I think like Terrell played football, you know, so when I, you know, you chirping, you know, like words. So like when I'm chirping him, he gets it, but every once in a while he forgets a little bit. And he gets a little sensitive like an artist. And I'm like, quit being a little, you know. And he's like, oh, yeah. I'm gonna do that then, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. The church, where were you, like, when were you professionally fighting? What era of your life was that?
Oh man. So right after, when my brother passed away, I was 22 years old. And on the day that he died, like heard an ad on a radio and for a tough man competition. And it was like a no holds barred kickboxing. And it was like swing for the fences, kick away, like 1 minute rounds. And there's dudes like, there's no fight commission. So this is like a smoker in some sense. And like, they had to do it outside of Milwaukee. It was like in Waukesha at like some like barn expo, and a couple thousand people are watching. And yeah, it happened like 2 weeks after my brother passed. I started fighting and I did really well. I knocked the first kid out in like 14 seconds, but like I had like martial arts experience, but it had been a little bit, but I was also like somebody who was like deadlifting like 500 pounds and squatting like 475. And, I was doing stupid numbers, like as like a 212 pound, 5'10", like piece of meat. And I had a lot of anger. And my next fight was against Justin, the Hitman Hutter. And like, this kid was like a legit MMA fighter. And I almost beat him. I lost by decision. And after that fight, this guy named Horace Kraft, who's like kind of my like, uncle, brother, kind of to this day, he like came up to me and he was like, you got talent, kid, blah, blah, blah. He's like, you should come meet at this place. And I was expecting like a bunch of people and it was just like him. Huh. And he was a retired sheriff. And he was like, he fought like Dennis Alexio and he was like a legit kickboxer. And he taught me how to he took me under his wing and we like worked at it. And the next year I did the same tournament and I walked through it. I knocked everybody out. And then I did my first like grappling tournament, and like took like second out of 9 states, like, after like 4 months of jujitsu. And then, about like, like 2 months later, I fought my first fight. So, I fought from 22 to 28. And at 28, I separated my shoulder really bad. And I had this like a massive emotional release and just realized that like fighting wasn't really what I wanted to do anymore. So I can't do math right now, but I think like 2006 to 2005 to 2010, something like that. 2000 and something, I don't know.
I got you. Carry the two. Yeah, I'm not a
carry the 2. 1 minus 4 is 7. I don't know. Yeah. Weed and math don't mix. Yeah.
Oh, no doubt. That's still cool. How do you handle like transition from more team sports back to individual sports? Because obviously gymnastics primarily individual as well.
So I was always a team sport athlete. And to be honest with you, I think individual sports are team sports. You're like, nobody is dribbling the ball for me when I'm playing soccer, right? Like it's just me and that ball and that player in front of me or that other, like these 2 defenders, it's like, yeah, you have a team that you can pass it off to, but still you have to be in like a position to do so, right? Like you can't be like in a dangerous position and like pass the ball, right? Like, so
yeah, it's an aggregation of like one-on-one wins anyways. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly what, so like when I was like a pole vaulter in high school, like that was more of that was like totally alone. Like, and like I had like nobody else I was pole vaulting with. That was the only alone sport I ever did. Cause like when I fought, I felt like, it's me and this dude, I'm beating his ass. But then I'm like going back and I'm like talking to my corner. I'm like, how am I doing? Okay. Yeah. Like, so your team's there and that it's never going to get out of hand or anything. So it never feels like some like real one-on-one situation. Like ultimately, I don't know. I just feel like it's always one-on-one. Like I have an entire team of Strong Coffee, but like, if I don't do what I have to do, when I have to do it, it ain't happening. Like Strong Coffee is not happening anymore, so I still have to get my daily one-on-ones within my team.
Yeah, no doubt. That's where it's like, because sometimes it's tough for guys to like transition into like the business world, entrepreneur world after sport. or like even changing sports to like the solo sports and those kind of things. But like in essence, like sports couldn't have made you a better competitor for life. And
100%, dude. Like fighting especially, right? Like fighting does in some ways solve everything. I mean,
I completely agree.
Right? Like fighting, everything is a fight. Like it's like, you know, I was in a call with like Whole Foods, and we're like talking to them during our 1 year review, which we like passed, which was amazing, right? Because a lot of brands don't pass a 1 year review, and then they become the brand that people used to talk about, right? And I'm like, well, who is our competition to like understand who to go forward? And they're like, oh, well, we don't really have like a direct competitor. I'm like, bullshit, you know, like in my head.
Yeah.
You know, and not disrespect to Whole Foods, like saying bullshit, like, but like in my head, I'm like, come on, like like show me an enemy. Give me a fight. Right? Like,
even if it's a masochistic fight, like make it up. Yeah.
Make it up. Like I'm fighting myself to like go to the gym, like, come on, you know, like you know, no, you can't, you're lazy. No, I'm not. But yeah, I mean, I think that fighting was a huge piece for my self-development. Like it helped me understand grueling in a whole nother way. Like it was, you know, you have somebody that like is bleeding on top of you, that's like punching you in the face, and you're doing whatever you can to get up, and there's like people watching
and cheering.
I mean, that's what life is, man. Like you're just on the ground getting punched in the face, and people are just watching you, thinking that everything's totally fucking fine.
Yeah, and nobody watching is gonna save you. No,
of course not, because this is a fight, right? Like, and they're watching, and people love watching train wrecks, and people love seeing car accidents, and you know, so ultimately, there's like a lot of people. I had this one, wasn't the most successful client of mine. I mean, probably, you know, like bottom 10%, but still a very successful person. But he told me one of the most, you know, impactful things. He's like, hey man, everybody loves to see you come up, but then they love to watch you fucking fall. Right. And it's like this like thought process of like, people are watching and they're seeing it, but they don't know what they're seeing.
Yeah.
You know, they don't know anything. But you're fucking fighting for your life. You know, like, that's what fighting is. It's like, you know, it's like bedtime is the bell, and the alarm clock is the bell. And it's like, you get a nice little 8 hour quarter time. You just get back in it.
I love that. Yeah. Well, I mean, I like the more aggressive analogies for life anyways. Like, I think it gets you going faster, but like people don't like, I feel like, and I talked about this on a couple of my other podcasts too. Like I've had some military guys on the podcast, and like the word violence gets really like has a really bad connotation to it, when really like business is all violence, and it's just not physical. Like it might be like physical in the realm of buildings and things like that, but at the end of the day, like it's corporate, like aggressive corporate takeover. It's, we got to attack these goals, we got to hit this, hit that. And people just like, it's nicer to say like violence is bad, but really like everybody performs the same. As if you're talking behind someone's back, you're not building the company up, X, Y, and Z. I think it's all encompassing again, where like people should embrace the aggressive violence of life, and the I don't know if immediacy is a word, but like the immediate nature of like literally competing for your life. And I think I think your mindset nails there, because I had Matt Brown, a UFC fighter, on here a couple episodes ago. Stud human, great dialed ass mindset, violent motherfucker.
Yeah, one of the best spinning back elbows.
Oh my God, yeah.
He hit that so many times in fights, that spinning back elbow. I'd be like, damn, he hit it again. Like, holy shit.
Yeah. Well, so he trains at the gym I go to, and just watching him like shadow box and throw elbows and shadow boxing and stuff, I'm just like, good God.
Yeah, man.
I thought
I enjoyed elbows too. You know, onto your violence thing. It's funny because the other day, well, like Dr. Steffi Cohen, she always talks about like wake up and choose violence. She has that shirt that says wake up, choose violence.
I haven't seen that, but she's coming to town next week, or this upcoming weekend. Yeah, for the the Swiss conference. It's a really cool conference where like it's all strength, some of the best names in strength, like Ed Cohen, Matt Wenning, and then like Steffi's coming, bunch of doctors, a lot of PT, and they just all share knowledge and like work on each other and coach each other in the hallways and stuff. Is really cool. But besides the point, keep going. Sorry. But
but yeah, it influenced me then, because like I saw her like wearing this, or I saw my buddy wearing the shirt that she sells that says "Wake up and choose violence," and I was like in a text thread with my employees, and I said be violently disciplined, right? And they all like were like Harding, be violently disciplined, and it kind of just like made me think about like the thought of how hard you just kind of have to like attack things. And I've just been attacking things a lot harder recently, like even going to the gym harder and just, doing, like when you turn 40, you can kind of like start to like tell yourself some shit, and you do feel some shit. And I mean, I did fight. So, I mean, I do feel like a little bit more shit than like the average 40-year-old, but I'm just kind of like, fuck that shit. Like and the minute I said, fuck that shit, and I just started pushing harder, like it all goes away. It's just like, okay. It's just like, I got to fight harder, and, yeah. And it's like, you think you retired, you just went up a level in fighting,
Yeah. It's a different form.
Real fighters don't have to throw these anymore.
Yeah.
They're throwing this all the time.
They're fighting smarter. Yeah.
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 Yeah, tactical fighting in the brain, just intellectual fighting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you articulate it really in a cool way where like even your verbiage can like, obviously they can push you in different directions if you understand the different. Hey, I'm going to go work out. No, hey, I'm going to go attack my workout. Hey, I'm going to go like violently murder my workout, like just, and like all those, I think were like, obviously how you talk to yourself and how you talk to others obviously influence your state and where you're going on top of other reasons. But I just think you can always adopt more violence in the realm of what you're attacking, whether it is the workout, what your business, life in general. I like the concept.
Yeah, there's a book called Meditations on Violence. That is a good read.
Cool. Yeah, I always like good book recs in that realm. And I preach it a lot on the podcast, particularly this like last podcast. I had a special like a special forces Green Beret on who's like been through some real violence. Yeah. And because I developed this as I was like getting done playing football, and over like I never wanted to lose competition in my life, but I didn't know how to quantify it, and it really ended up like what was my identity anyways? Like same, I don't know if you went through that, like you're not a fighter anymore kind of phase for a little bit. But the identity was never like football player, NFL, whatever. It was literally like, that was my capability. My capability allowed me to hold the NFL player title for a little while. But at the end of the day, what is my capability? And now like, what are my ends of the capability? And I talk about in like the violence peace spectrum and why it's important to be violent physically, mentally, articulate, like from a linguistic standpoint. And then also now it's like the peace end, like how can I down regulate? How can I meditate? Those kind of things. Like, how can I have walls on like what words trigger me? And like, now how can I stretch that? And how can I just become confident in this whole spectrum? And how can I compete in this whole spectrum? And then eventually you end with confidence. And like, that's kind of how I've attacked it. And, but it's worked. I think it's worked out well for me. And I find people have their own variants of that. Yeah. I don't know if that rings any bells for you.
Yeah, no, of course, man. I mean, it was when I retired from fighting, it was a pretty big culture shock. I mean, the house I was living in was paid for by fight sponsorships. The people that I was all hanging out with loved fighters. It was like, so I went from being like the guy who was introduced to like people as like Adam, my friend, like the professional fighter. They meet my, like that's kind of like how they would do it, because it would like level them up socially or something.
Yeah.
And
it's just 3D Instagram.
Right. Exactly. It was like real life Instagram at the time, and their clout score or some shit. And I felt all of a sudden, less kind of showed around or, whatever, when I stopped fighting and when I stopped showing up to the gym and, my friends, like see my quote thumbs, my friends.
Yeah.
They weren't really maybe my friends, you know, they were just like my teammates. And, you know, not all of them, but just like, you just kind of see these things, right? Like anybody who played a professional sport hearing this totally fucking understands what I'm saying, because they're still super focused and you're not super focused, or whatever it is, that you just, you lose touch with a lot of your life that you had as an athlete and the people that are in it, because you're not in it anymore, right? And they are. So there's that whole thing. So when my identity kind of like changed, it was interesting because I, you know, was kind of like shifted from like, from being like this MMA fighter to being this kind of like a model, I guess. Like in less than like a year and a half after retiring, I was flying to New York and shooting with, you know, like big name photographers, and, you know, I'm being picked up by a modeling agency, and, you know, 4 years later, I'm shooting back-to-back campaigns with Versace. It was like, it was very weird, like this whole identity shift. And I lost like 25 pounds, you know, I mean, I like shifted my whole look. And it's interesting because I've always been a very much like kind of like burn the bridges mentality. And I did it with, like, when I stopped playing college soccer, I never touched a soccer ball again, really. You know, when I stopped being a union electrician, somebody asked me how to do like an electrical question. I'm like, I don't know. You know, even though I kind of do know, like, I just don't even like, I'm like, no, like that part of my life is like gone. And when I got done fighting, I hadn't touched martial arts again, but like, that was something I did every fucking day, like 4 hours a day. All of a sudden, like, I wasn't, after 7 years, just like gone. And, you know, modeling then happened, and it was just kind of like, all right, next thing, you know, I'm being a trainer, but like, then I'm just doing this modeling stuff. So it was interesting because it was just like rapid identity change of sorts, you know. And I mean, I think I was kind of lucky because I kind of found something else like very fast, where a lot of people struggle to like find their next thing. And then I realized, like, and then eventually, like, you realize you don't need a next thing, but like, you're not like secure enough with yourself at 28, you know, as you are at like 38 or 35, right? Like, this is certainly a journey, you know, confidence and security and like yourself. And even today at 40 years old, I'm always like, am I going to have a job tomorrow? You know, like, you know, I mean, like, it's just the dumbest shit. Like,
yeah, but like, if you like, if you want to start to contextualize then those kind of things, because I talk about this a lot in general, just because it's everybody's going through it. Like, I think there's like two ends of the spectrum, where you have like literally like children, and you have like super wise old men, and like everybody, like 90% of the universe is like in between that and like figuring it out. Like, everybody's winging it kind of deal. And so like the more you can identify with change, like, change is only constant. So, okay, like, I really shouldn't hold on to the identities. Like, I've heard it said so many different ways, where like after every identity shift, you got to learn to either go to the valley and bottom of the mountain again. You got to be an infant again, because all your relationships change. You got to learn how to be a son, a friend, a husband, whatever it ends up being again. You can apply whatever analogy you want to it, but like, life's going to move on. Titles are going to change. And like, and then like, yeah, you don't need to find something else, but I do think that there's power in like picking up again, like goals, hobbies, responsibilities. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I know you weren't knocking that. And then like, yeah, passion is, I don't know, it's one
like,
of
what the fuck are you passionate about? Like, if you're not going to do anything, like, a lot, I mean, look at how like all these retired athletes, how fat they get.
Yeah.
It's like, because they weren't passionate about working out or being healthy. They played football. And then once that was gone from their life, or like whatever sport it was, like, it was like motivation to be good at that sport, which is why they were in shape. It wasn't like they were dedicated to health and wellness.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's very different. I mean, look at like what, you know, I mean, not Kevin Durant, but Howard, you know, look at Dwight Howard's diet for like most of his NBA career was like 32 Snicker bars a day or something, crazy like that. And that's not like an exaggeration. I once put that on my Instagram story and I tagged him in it, and he hit me back and he corrected me. And he's like, they weren't all Snicker bars.
Yeah, there's Twix in there too, bro. Yeah.
Dude, basically, that's what he said. He's like, but I do really like candy.
Yeah, and like I saw it in NFL locker rooms all the time too. And then like half the time they're having rookies bring in like so many like fried chicken sandwiches or like the breakfast, like the whatever they are, like the Popeyes chicken sandwiches.
Yeah, totally.
And then like
it's all shit food, but like it's like it's better to have some passion and purpose, and find the next thing, and then like in some manner, right, to like put your energy into, and even if that is your family, like, or whatever it is, but like, ultimately, not having a purpose, is not, not having passion is not having kind of purpose in some sense.
Yeah, no doubt. And like we hit that on here all the time too, where it's just like you always gotta, because like sometimes it's easy to drift away from your purpose too. And that's why you have to like aim at specific things, but like always like I'm big on like journaling and that whole side of the world too, where it's just like self-observation and then constantly figuring out what your fire is, and then go and kill whatever, again, back to the violence, but go and attack whatever the fuck you want. And like literally whatever the fuck you want, no cares about what anybody else thinks, like just go. And I think that like the more people realize that, and the more, I think a lot of great people spread that message phenomenally too, like way better than I can ever say it. But like I talk about a lot on the podcast because I think everybody needs reminded of it almost every single day. It's like,
I had to remind a 60-some-year-old lady the other day, some shit. She's walking past my house, and we painted our house. We bought our first house. We painted our house black.
Black. I love the dark houses, but keep going. Yeah.
Black trim, black, and it's we got polished concrete floor, all this cool shit. And she walks by and says, is that the final color? And I go, yeah. I'm like, perhaps you should reserve judgment.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to stop her from saying something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me and just some other people don't like that color of the house. I'm like, well, you can tell you and your friends can go fuck themselves. And it's like if you are going to attack someone, right? Don't be shocked if you get back.
If you're gonna chirp, you better get chirped back.
If you are going to attack somebody, make sure you do it violently.
Yeah, and
right? Like, because
not passive aggressively.
My house and say shit again.
Yeah,
it's like
and make sure you don't attack a fucking shark. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I was like, you see these tattoos and these ears? This is not false advertising.
Yeah.
I'm like the last person that by an observational, oh yeah, I should tell that guy that I don't like his black house.
Yeah.
No, I'm like driving this big ass truck.
I would have called her racist.
Well, you know what? I was like, is black not a beautiful color?
Yeah.
Man. Some people though, I mean, it just kind of goes to show that some people forget that they're fighting here.
Yeah, they don't think before they speak.
She came up to me and went like that.
Yeah.
Don't do that to a lion.
Yeah.
Don't do that to a lion. First time I found out I was that guy, because I kind of had to be that guy, it was my dad, but I never thought I was that guy until I had somebody actually flick my ear in freshman homeroom. And he did it 2 times. And I turned around. I was like, bro, you do that one more time. I'm like, I'm going to take you out. And this failed, 2-year failed super freshman, egged him on. I heard it. He went to flick and I moved my head. I stood up and I balked to do something. And he kind of came in on me and I dropped down and just took his legs out and just threw him on. Man, I wrestled in 7th grade and 8th grade. So I kind of knew what was happening in some way. And I just like, and plus martial arts, whatever, and I just took his ass out and I got on top of him and I went to hit him. And the teacher grabbed me right, like as I was like about to strike him. It was pretty, I was like, whoa. I was like, all right. I'm like, I have a thing inside me. I'm like, and I have to understand that. And it was from there on out that I was like, okay, control yourself. There's like a couple times, like I tried never fighting outside of a ring, but like, there's like a couple times like bouncing that like, hey man, like it did end up going that far, and like you are like suplexing a dude on a dance floor, cause they're like they're like swinging a bottle at you.
Yeah.
Like this is violence. So it's like, I've had to go there a couple of times. I don't like physical violence necessarily, but like,
but having that capability, it's kind of like,
but it is physical. You can't like not be physical. Like you can't,
Yeah. And that's why you should err on the side of like strength, being well-trained in some MMA form, like things like that. It's logical. Like that's the most and especially
be a really good runner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be a really good runner.
Yeah. Play with the tools that God's give you, or figure out where you can, like, again, like if your endurance is your separator, go for it. Yeah.
Total side rant. Okay. So there's like, every once in a while, I like to like jump on like a martial arts, like post and like say something that's like, I think is true. Like, I'm not trying to like push buttons, but like you get all these like Instagram warriors that have no martial arts experience. I'd probably say like 80% of them that are for sure that any MMA fighter would beat any Wing Chun master. Right. Yes. And it's kind of like a illogical, it's not even like a logical conversation really, like, right. Because like any MMA fighter could beat any Wing Chun master. I mean, come on. Like, like you're not even being logical in this conversation.
At least scale it to like the best UFC fighters or something. Yeah.
Right. Well, and then it's like, hey, like the ultimate, so I'm like, hey man, like every situation calls for a different level of like violence, like a different form of attack. Like effectively, MMA would not be the best form of martial arts if this Wing Chun guy has a sword. Like, I'm sorry, but like you put a sword in a Wing Chun dude's hand and he's going to cut you into like 9 pieces and serve you up as sushi. Like, it's like, it's like a different conversation. And people kind of just get lost in this kind of like emotional logic where they're so emotionally attached to something because they're like super MMA fans, right? And I'm a contrarian. So even like as an MMA fighter, I believe that a dude who's really highly trained could probably knock my jugular out while I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to grab him like this. And he just, because he doesn't have rules. I developed rules as an MMA fighter. I know as an MMA fighter that I can't do this or I'd be like disqualified. So like now if I'm in a fight with somebody and this is my only option, my brain's not going to really think like this, right? Yeah. Because it's like trained out of you. So it's like not logical. So it's like everybody has like a different level of like approach. And I believe that like that post was kind of like one of these things where I'm like, hey man, like think about balance. Like it's not all the same weapon. It's not all the same situation. So every situation is going to require a different attack, a different response.
Yeah. And it's like even the scale of the response. Like I was listening to some military guy talk on a podcast where it's like some of like the rules of war like require like tit for tat, where it's like, oh, they're responding at 4 violence, I need to respond at 4 violence, when in reality, like you might come across somebody that no matter what violence is inflicted upon them, 10 is the answer, gun is the answer, like things like that, where like you got to take that into account. And it's not just like, and I like your pulling in of the rules, like where MMA fighters have been trained with rules, like, cause now there's lifelong UFC fighters, like they started young and like jujitsu and have moved through the whole deal. And like, so we see some, like we saw the teenager get the first UFC contract and that kind of thing, where it's just like, it's going to keep getting younger and they're going to keep being, there's going to be prodigies now and all the above.
His brain's going to be so fucked up though. I feel like,
yeah, well, just like
your brain's not even fully developed till you're 25 years old.
Yeah.
And like, obviously I was fighting younger than 25, and I'm not saying that you have to wait to be 25, but I think like getting hit in the head, like at that level at like 17 years old already on like a regular basis, it's like, it's certainly, it makes me a little nervous about like, somebody like him, but he's his own person. but I definitely saw that. And I did like about 2 hours of reading into him. And I was just kind of like, I'm like, damn, this kid has a lot of fights like already, he is very talented. There's some serious prodigies that are coming out of the sport, but you're right. Like lifelong people, like I forget who said it, but like somebody said competition weakens the spirit. Right. And it was like the idea that like a fighter,
you only have so many fights in you kind of deal.
No, it's more like if you compete as a fighter, then like effectively, like you're like trained around these rules versus like being like a warrior. Like it's like a very old saying, but like it's like
we're talking about different prices on winning and losing there. Yeah.
Right. And, but like that was kind of the sentiment was that, you like being like competing in this thing isn't actually like going to, like it doesn't bring like fruition. It's like, it's more like you're only, save it for war. Yeah. I think it was kind of like the idea behind it.
No, I like that. And just to respect your time too, we're already ripping around an hour, but we kind of skipped over it. But usually the opening question I have, because we kind of hop right into the business deal, but like where in your life because the name of the podcast is Chasing Edges, like where are you chasing edges right now in your life? Where are you learning? Where are you growing?
Well, right now I'm remodeling a house, so I'm learning a lot about a lot more about construction work than I previously did. Man, I am right now learning, a lot about letting go and like being able to kind of be disassociated from certain aspects of my business, like in certain ways, which is very challenging for me because like I've always kind of made the whole burger in a way. Like I flipped the bun, grab the lettuce, like that's how I started it. And as it's grown, so much more over the last year and a half, after laying like that foundation down, seeing things happening around me without me like having direct input, is kind of interesting, right? Because it's my baby.
Yeah.
That said, like getting, a partial acquisition and bringing on an entire company that has over 150 employees, I'm going to be working with, and
you didn't hire them, it's a different
culture. Right. So there's certainly that. And all at the same time, like really trying to be the best husband and father I can be, and not letting go of my own personal, like physical endeavors, right? Like it's a massive balance, like being an entrepreneur at this like next stage, being a father of young kids and, being a husband, there's a lot of, and having like my own desires, even like outside of Strong Coffee, right? Like to like be super in shape and like go do this and go do this. And, it's like, but taking care of what it is that I have to do. And I think like that, I'm always riding the edge, I'm always riding the edge. I mean, all the way, like even metaphorically, like a quick little story. I took my family on a 30-day, we lived out of a van trip and traveling to all these different Whole Foods throughout all of Colorado.
How old is your kid or kids?
7 and 8. Now 8 and 9.
Okay.
Soon to be 8. Yeah. So 7 and 9 right now, but soon to be 8. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And me, my wife, my 2 girls and my 2 dogs. And, we're go. We're like serving at Aviator Nation. We're here. We got the kids. Like, we're like, we got to find a place to stay tonight. Like, right. So we're like reading these directions for like a place to stay. And it says like, go left or go right. And I'm like, I think it says go right. So we're like going right. And all of a sudden we like drive past a road that says, don't go past this road. And I'm like, this must be the road that we're supposed to go to. Because like, Like maybe this is like the private entry. So let's just go
because I'm always right too. So yeah.
Well, no, because I'm just like attacking this shit. I'm like, we got to get here, right? You know, and because I'm right a lot. So
yeah.
And these instructions suck. So like, I'm just going to go with my best option. And we're literally on a cliff's edge and there's nowhere to turn around. And I had to back this man up for, I would say, half a mile on a cliff's edge, just back it up ever so slowly. A big van, big ass van, big van. And it was all like, we're here because we have so many things going on and we're pushing it so hard that we just didn't even have the time to read the instructions right, because we're just going and we are literally on the edge of a fucking mountain right now.
Yeah, literally and figuratively. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally and figuratively. I'm like, we need to get back to so we can go to bed and wake up tomorrow morning and do it all over again.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, you kind of touched on it earlier, but if anything else comes to mind, we'll close it out here where the best advice you received or the best advice you can give, like what kind of comes to mind there?
Don't live life in fear, live life aware. That's always been a sentence I've loved, or like a quote I loved.
Yeah.
I learned that pretty young and it like stuck in my head. I mean, I think ultimately what I've learned so far is that, you know, like consistency is really important, and that just like getting up and doing the work. I call it, you know, earning the day, you know, like I earn the day. And that's like something I've had tattooed on my finger for a long time, so long that it's worn off, but it's been my saying for a long time. And ultimately I ask myself all the time, like, did you earn it? You know, is this like, you know, and good and bad.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all your responsibility. Yeah. It
is all your responsibility. And so
but the consistency showed up across, because like I mean, you've lived so much life already. Like I think I like how you live your life personally, just as like a little side note.
Thanks, man.
But like through, I mean, obviously like collegiate sports, then to like the MMA, whenever you were the electrician, to the model, to now like the entrepreneur founder of like this company, like the consistency, I think, is just like one of the principles of life, where like whatever occupation or title you step into, like there's like 10 principles of life. And I think one of the most phenomenal, and like one of my guys in my crew here, Corey Gregory, is consistencies like his ethos. And so like I always love hearing people come back to that. And I think it's just always just a powerful reminder, same as like have a purpose and have consistency, and like a lot of life will sort itself out along the way. You just got to let time be a variable.
100%. I love, in closing, I've always had this obsession of time. Well, not always. After my brother died, I kind of like saw this like shot clock in like the corner of my eye, and I could never like really make it out. But like time was moving, and less time, like time is descending, right? So we're losing time. But like every time I like try to like, you know, this is not a real clock, right? This is a metaphor in some sense, but like in a way it was very real to me, right? Every time I'd try to look at the clock in the corner of my eye, it would just like, the clock would move. It's like, I can never make it out, right? I can never know how much time. And my brother died at 35 of an overdose. And I had this like really like weird thing in my head that like, am I going to die at 35? Right? Like this like survivor's guilt, like this, like all this like weird stuff that was like kind of brewing into this, you know, emotional, am I going to die at 35?
Yeah.
And I never wanted to waste time. So I took it super literal when I opened up a gym, and the first 2 members I had, I went and bought this Casio G-Shock watch at the sneaker shop. And I started kind of instinctively just timing everything, like everything, conversations with people, a shower, a shit, a meal, sex, like whatever it was, I would time it, you know, and I would acknowledge it. And then I'd reset my, you know, I'd reset it. And I mean, I'd just like, somebody be like, hey, Adam, I'd be like, what's up? and I'd never be like, oh, I got to go. I never used time as an excuse. I just allowed time to be, but yet I measured it and I started to value it because then I knew how much of it I had. And I started like thinking about like how people know how much money they have in their bank account, like down to like $100 or whatever, whatever it is, they know they can or they cannot afford something, right? In some sense, but they don't think of time that way, like a way more precious commodity. And then you hear that same person say that they just don't have time for that, right? They don't. And as a trainer, you hear that more than anything. So like this obsession just kept kind of like brewing, right? And I'd be like, what do you mean you don't have fucking time for it? Like, where does all your time go? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I do. And I was like, I time everything I do. And I was like, started explaining this to some people. Well, I gave it a rest because some, like if you're not talking like super type A performers, like that sounds crazy. So then I met Neil Strauss and I was like sitting there and I was his kind of like morning assistant for about like 5 months. I kind of helped him write a book and by making him get up and getting him to a writing house. And I like watch him write and like make sure he wasn't distracted and all these different things.
Yeah, you controlled his environment.
I controlled his environment. And we went surfing on a break. And I was telling him about time. And he's like, you sound just like Seneca. He's like, do you know who that is? And I was like, no. And he's like, you should read The Shortness of Time. And we get back to his house and he gives me a copy. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, it's not that time is short. It's that we waste so much of it. Right. And that is truly like, stop wasting time and you're going to be able to do the shit you want to do. People that tell you the space is crowded and whatever the fuck you want to do, just work harder than the guy next to you.
Yeah. Use your time better.
Use your time better.
Or be better, be better in your time. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah.
Be better in your time. Use your energy. Like do all the things, but like effectively just don't make an excuse. Just make time. Right. It's like, that's what you have to do. Don't make an excuse, make time. And I found that by making time, I had to take time from the things that didn't matter to make time for the things that do, because I don't have a machine that makes time and I don't have a time machine. So I can't take time and do all these things. It's all this like weird kind of,
yeah. Right? I can't earn time revenue. Yeah. No. But like in essence, dude, like that's honestly like, that's the healthiest obsession I've ever heard in my life. Obsession. Why would you not be obsessed with it? Because like I preach and I try and live like in like the Jordan Peterson manner of like, if you want a meaningful life, everything's meaningful. And then now you start like quantifying meaning or what holds the most value. Like obviously money comes to mind right away, but really obviously time is of the essence and the most importance. And
it's the root of all things, man. People will say it's money. That's not true. Because like, check it. If time was infinite, money wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. You would never be in a rush to do anything. Right. You would never feel like, oh, my time is coming up. I still haven't bought a house and I'm 30 because age wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. So effectively time is the ultimate stress. And those of you that don't actually like manage your time or know where your time goes, it's like, that's a huge problem of why you're at where you're at and you're not where you want to be.
Yeah, that's savage. And it's because like I speak to some high schools here in Columbus, Ohio, just about like mental skills on life. And one of like my two biggest points involve time, where it's like where you spend your time is where you see your results. There's nothing more simple in my mind, like for a kid to hear is like, okay, if I spend more time studying, I'll get smarter. If I spend more time in the weight room, I get stronger. If I spend more time honing my craft, I get better at my craft. Like super easy. And then like I think kids need more and more to be excited about at all times now, because there's a lot of distractions of like what in essence their excitement really is. And so I call them the richest humans on the planet. Like Elon Musk is not the richest person in this room, like on this planet right now. You guys are. You have this incredible, valuable resource to spend where you want to try and fail and figure things out. Like that should excite you, that you have more time than I do. I'm jealous that you have more time than me in essence. And so like I try and hit those home. But like I just want to touch on the one thing, because I've never measured. I've scheduled my time, but I haven't like exactly measured my time in the realm. I used to like time my walks to places and stuff like that. But I'm a big believer that like what you measure, you can manage. So I think as much as you can tangibilize the mental skill of a shot clock, or the tangibilize how long you last in the bedroom, whatever it ends up being, it's it applies, and and you should value that and track it the same as you do your money. So I think that's a fucking awesome point to end on. Adam, dude, you're a stud, man. I thoroughly love the conversation. I appreciate your time, man.
I appreciate you too, man. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And I definitely look forward to watching your journey from the sideline, slinging the strong stuff. You let me know when you need more coffee.
Oh, easy. Yeah. Hell yeah. And it'll spread through my word of mouth as well now.
I appreciate that, man.
Easy. Yeah. Be well. Thank you so much.
Yep.